Get out of here! I didn't invite you, my daughter-in-law shouted when I tried to sit at the table I had prepared myself since 5 in the morning for her birthday. But this was my house. I stood up slowly, walked to the door, and did something that left all the guests frozen. Jessica's words cut the air like broken glass. All the guests froze, their forks halfway to their mouths, glasses suspended in the air. The silence that followed was so heavy you could feel it on your skin. My hands were stained with tamale masa. I had started cooking at 5 o'clock in the morning. I prepared the red pozole that Matthew has loved since he was a boy. Tamales with cheese and peppers, Mexican rice, and refried beans with chorizo. I cut flowers from my garden, the bougainvillea I planted 20 years ago with my husband, David, and put them in vases all over the living room. I cleaned every corner, shined the floors, and ironed the embroidered tablecloths my mother left me when she died. All for the birthday of Jessica, my daughter-in-law, my only son's wife. And when I tried to sit at the head of my own table, in the house I built with my own hands next to my late husband, David, she looked at me as if I were trash on the sidewalk. "That seat is for my mother," she shouted, pointing at me as if I were a naughty child. "You sit over there, by the kitchen, in case anything needs to be served." Her friends' eyes pierced me. Some looked down, ashamed. Others smiled with that silent cruelty that only women know. Matthew, my son, my blood, stood next to Jessica with his mouth open but speechless, without a single word to defend me. To understand how I came to throw my own family out of my house, I need to take you back 3 years. To the day Matthew arrived with that smile I hadn't seen on his face since he was a teenager. "Mom, I met someone," he told me that April afternoon, his eyes shining like carnival lights. I was in the backyard, pruning my rose bushes. I took off my gardening gloves and looked at him. My son was 34 years old and had come out of 2 difficult relationships. Seeing him so excited filled me with hope. "Her name is Jessica. She's incredible, Mom. Smart, educated, ambitious. She works in digital marketing. I met her at a business conference in Austin. 2 weeks later, Jessica showed up at my door with a bouquet of white lilies and a perfect smile. She wore an elegant but not exaggerated wine-colored dress. Her brown hair was pulled back in a flawless ponytail. Discreet makeup. She smelled of expensive perfume. "Mrs. Elena," she said in a sweet voice, "Matthew has told me so much about you. It's an honor to meet the woman who raised such a wonderful man. The right words, the right tone, the right attitude." I welcomed her into my living room. I served her spiced coffee and the pan dulce I had baked that morning. Jessica asked me about the photos on the wall. She praised my plants. She listened attentively when I told her how David and I built this house brick by brick, working double shifts for 5 years. "What an inspiring story," she said, touching my hand. "Women from your generation are made of iron. I aspire to have your strength." She won me over. I admit it without shame. Jessica conquered me just as she had conquered Matthew. 2 months later, she came to see me alone. She seemed nervous. She fidgeted with her hands. "Mrs. Elena, I need to ask you a favor. I'm so embarrassed, but I'm trying to launch my own consulting business, and the bank denied my loan. Matthew doesn't know because I don't want to worry him. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you lend me $3,000? I'll pay you back in 6 months, with interest if you want." She looked down, her eyes glistening. "I'll understand if you say no. I have no right to ask you this, but you're the only person I trust." I had that money saved for emergencies. Money I had put away from selling tamales on weekends for years after David died. But Jessica seemed so sincere, so vulnerable. "I don't need interest," I told her. "You're practically family." She hugged me, crying. "Thank you, Mrs. Elena. You don't know what this means to me. I swear I'll pay you back. I never saw that money again." When my sister Sylvia met Jessica at a family dinner, she pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Elena, that girl looks like an opportunist," she whispered as we washed the dishes. "Have you seen how she looks at the house? Like she's sizing it up." "Sylvia, you've always been suspicious," I replied, annoyed. "Jessica is a good girl. Matthew is happy." "Okay," my sister sighed. "But when things get ugly, remember, I warned you. I didn't listen to her. I defended Jessica when Sylvia made comments. Even when my daughter Valerie, who lived in Chicago, called me worried. Mom, I looked up Jessica on social media. She has pictures at expensive restaurants, trips to Cancun, designer clothes. Where is she getting the money if she's just starting her business? Valerie, don't be a gossip, I told her. Social media doesn't show the whole reality. 6 months after that first meeting, Matthew announced they were getting married. It was fast, I know, he said. But when you know, you know. And Mom, Jessica is the woman of my life. I organized the wedding. I hired the hall, paid for the banquet for 100 people, and spent $10,000 I had saved for my old age. Jessica chose everything. The flowers, the music, even the menu. I just signed the checks and smiled. Thank you, Mrs. Elena, she would always say. I don't know what we'd do without you. The day of the wedding, as I watched her walk down the aisle in that white dress that cost $2,000, I felt a strange pinch in my chest, like a warning I didn't know how to hear. Matthew looked at her as if she were an angel sent from heaven. And I, foolishly, thought I was gaining a daughter. I didn't know I was losing a son. The first 3 months after the wedding were normal. Jessica and Matthew came over for Sunday dinner, helped me with heavy groceries, and called to ask how I was. I thought everything would be fine. But the cracks started to show one Saturday afternoon. They arrived without warning. I was in old sweatpants, with my hair in a messy braid, cleaning the windows. I heard the key in the lock and was surprised. Matthew, what are you doing here? I asked. Mom, I told you Jessica needed to use your kitchen today. Don't you remember? He hadn't told me anything. But I saw Jessica's look, that tense smile, and I didn't want to make a scene. Of course, son. Come on in. Jessica walked straight into my kitchen as if it were hers. She opened the pantry where I keep my spices and frowned. Mrs. Elena, how do you find anything in here? It's all disorganized. She started pulling out jars, reorganizing, moving my things. I stood in the doorway, watching her touch what my husband and I had arranged for years. It's fine like that, Jessica, I said softly. I know where everything is. No, alphabetical order is better. Trust me, it's more efficient. Matthew was in the living room on his phone, ignoring everything. That was the first time, but not the last. 2 weeks later, they came again. This time, Jessica brought furniture catalogs. Mrs. Is it Armo? Elena, I was thinking. That green sofa in the living room is very outdated, don't you think? It's like 20 years old. 23 years. I had bought it with David when Matthew turned 11. I remembered the day perfectly. He was so happy because we finally had a new sofa, not a second-hand one. I like that sofa, I said. Oh, ma'am, but it just looks so old. Look, here are some modern minimalist ones. Matthew and I could buy it for you as a gift. I don't need a gift. My sofa is fine. Jessica exchanged a look with Matthew. He shrugged. Mom, maybe Jessica is right. A change would be good. I felt like I had been slapped, but I swallowed and smiled. We'll see. The next month, the attack was more direct. Jessica was in my dining room, looking at the china cabinet where I kept my mother's porcelain set. 24 plates, cups, and bowls with hand-painted flowers. It was the only material thing I had left of her. You know what, Mrs. Elena? This china is taking up so much space. When was the last time you used it? At Christmas. I lied. The truth was, I didn't use it because I was afraid it would break, but it was mine. We could sell it. I saw online that this kind of antique china is worth a bit. Maybe you could get $1,000 or $2,000 for it. You could buy new clothes with that, right? I've noticed you wear the same things a lot. The blood rushed to my face. My clothes are fine, and my china is not for sale. It was just a suggestion, Jessica said, raising her hands. Don't be offended. But I was already offended. I was beginning to understand something I didn't want to accept. Jessica wasn't visiting me. Jessica was inspecting me. The following months were worse. She started arriving unannounced. Sometimes when I was in my pajamas having my morning coffee, she would open my refrigerator and comment, Mrs. Elena, you have too many expired things in here. She would check my bathroom and say, these tiles desperately need updating. One day, She arrived with a huge box. "I brought new pots and pans for your kitchen. The others are so scratched." They were my pots, the ones I had used for 30 years. Yes, they had signs of wear, but they worked perfectly. "I don't need them, Jessica. I already bought them. They can't be returned." And so, little by little, my house began to feel less like mine. Jessica brought things, moved things, threw things away. Always with that sweet smile, always with those words. "It's for your own good, Mrs. Elena. I just want to help. Trust me, it's better this way." And Matthew never said anything. Absolutely nothing. One afternoon, after they left, I sat on my green sofa, the one Jessica hated, and I cried. I cried for the first time since David's funeral, because I was starting to feel like a visitor in my own home, as if my life, my memories, my things didn't matter, as if I were in the way. But the worst was yet to come. Because Jessica didn't just want to change my house, she wanted to change me. And I would soon discover just how far she was willing to go. Christmas of that year changed everything. It was December. I had already taken the Christmas decorations out of the closet. The nativity set that David and I bought in Santa Fe 30 years ago. The red and gold ornaments, the lights we put in the window every year. I had everything planned. I would make the traditional salt cod, romeritos, and fruit punch. Christmas had always been sacred in my house. But Jessica had other plans. She arrived on a Tuesday afternoon with Matthew. She didn't even knock. She used the key I had given her for emergencies. "Mrs. Elena, we have exciting news," she said with that cheerful voice that was starting to make me nervous. "This year, we're going to host Christmas dinner here, but I'll take care of everything." "What do you mean you'll take care of it?" "I always make Christmas dinner." "I know, but it's a lot of work for you. You don't have the same energy you used to. It's better if you rest and leave it to me." I was 68 years old, not 90. I could still cook perfectly well. "Jessica, I appreciate the gesture, but—" "It's already decided, Mom," Matthew interrupted. "Jessica invited her family, too. It's going to be like 20 people. It's too much for you alone." 20 people? Her family? In my house? For my Christmas? "No one consulted me," I said, feeling my voice break. "We don't need to consult you, Mom. It's our house now, too." Those words hit me like punches. Our house. As if Jessica had any right to the place where I had raised my children, where my husband had died in my arms, where every corner held 40 years of memories. "This is my house, Matthew," I said firmly. He sighed, annoyed. "Mom, don't start. Jessica just wants to help. Don't start." As if I were a petulant child. Christmas Eve arrived. Jessica transformed my living room into something unrecognizable. She put away my nativity set and put up a modern silver tree with minimalist ornaments. She swapped my embroidered tablecloths for plain white ones. She hid my traditional decorations in boxes because they cluttered the space. Her family arrived first. Her mother, Susan, her father, Robert, her 2 brothers with their wives, her nieces and nephews. People I didn't know, invading my home. They sat in my living room as if they owned it. Jessica's mother looked me up and down and said, "So, you're the mother-in-law. Jessica has told me so much about you." The tone wasn't kind, it was evaluative, as if she were inspecting used furniture. I had made fruit punch, even though Jessica said it wasn't necessary. I served it in silence while she received compliments on the decor I hated. "Jessica, you have such great taste," her mother said. This house desperately needed an update. Valerie arrived from Chicago with her husband, Daniel, and my 2 grandchildren, Sophia and Mateo. My daughter hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, "Mom, what happened to Grandpa's nativity set?" "Jessica put it away," I said without looking at her. I saw Valerie clench her jaw, but she said nothing. She didn't want to ruin the dinner. Jessica served roast turkey with mashed potatoes. Nothing traditional, nothing I would have made. But everyone applauded and congratulated her. I ate in silence at a corner of the table, like a last-minute guest. After dinner, I offered to help clean up. "No, Mrs. Elena, you should go rest. You're too old for these things." That phrase, "you're too old." I felt something break inside me, but I nodded and went to my room. I sat on the bed, looking at the photos of David on the nightstand. I cried silently so no one would hear me. After midnight, I went out to the bathroom. The house was dark. I heard voices in the kitchen, Jessica and her mother. I froze in the hallway, listening. "And when do you think it will happen?" Susan asked. "I don't know, Mom, but it has to be soon. She's 68. At that age, anything can happen." "And are you sure Matthew will inherit the house?" "He's the only son. Obviously, he'll leave everything to him. The sister doesn't count. She lives in Chicago." They both laughed. "When it happens," Jessica continued, "we sell this house immediately. I already saw it's worth about $500,000. With that, we buy something modern downtown. This neighborhood is so run down. And what if the old woman lives for many more years?" There was a silence. Then Jessica spoke with a coldness that chilled my blood. "There are ways to speed things up. Nursing homes, for example. Matthew is already considering the idea. He says his mom is too lonely here, that it would be better if she were in a place with more people. Smart. And that way, the house is free." "Exactly." I leaned against the wall so I wouldn't fall. My legs were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they could hear it. My daughter-in-law, the woman I had lent money to, the one I defended, the one I received as a daughter, was waiting for me to die, planning to lock me in a nursing home, planning to sell the house I built with my own hands. And Matthew knew. My son knew. And not only was he not defending me, he agreed. I went back to my room as best I could. I sat on the bed, staring into space until the sun began to rise. I didn't sleep that Christmas. But I woke up. Because sometimes the greatest gift isn't what they give you, it's what they take away so you can finally see the truth. I spent 3 days without talking to anyone after Christmas. Valerie went back to Chicago, worried. She called me every night, asking if I was okay. I told her yes, I was just tired. I couldn't tell her yet what I had heard. I needed to confirm it first. I needed to give Matthew the chance to prove me wrong. On December 29th, I called him. My voice trembled. "Son, could you come to the house? Just you. I need to talk to you." "Sure, Mom. I'll be there this afternoon." He arrived at 5. I watched him walk in, and my heart ached. That was my baby. The boy I nursed. The one I cared for when he had chickenpox. The one I applauded at his graduation. The man his father taught to ride a bike in this very yard. When had I stopped knowing him? "What's wrong, Mom? You sound worried." We sat in the living room, on the green sofa that Jessica hated. I took a deep breath. "Matthew, on Christmas night, I heard Jessica talking to her mother in the kitchen. I saw his face change. He knew exactly what I was going to say. They were talking about this house, about selling it when I die, about putting me in a nursing home. The silence that followed was deafening. "Mom, it's not what you think. It's not what I think." I stood up, blood boiling in my veins. "Then what is it, Matthew? What part did I misunderstand? The part where your wife is waiting for me to die? Or the part where you are already considering locking me up in a home? Mom, lower your voice. This is my house. I'll shout if I want to." Matthew ran his hands over his face, nervous. I knew him so well I could see every lie forming before it left his mouth. "Jessica didn't mean it. She talks without thinking sometimes. You know how women are when they're with their mothers." "Don't give me those cheap excuses," I interrupted. "So, you are planning to sell my house?" "It's not just your house, Mom. Someday it will be mine, too. It's the inheritance Dad left me." Those words hit me harder than any of Jessica's insults. "Your father built this house for me, so I would have a safe roof over my head when he was gone. Not for you and your wife to sell it like it's an empty lot. Mom, you need to be realistic. You're alone here. This house is too big for one person. There are very nice facilities where you'd have company, activities, people your age. I don't want to be with people my age. I want to be in my house. The house where your sister was born, where your father died in my arms, where I keep every memory of my life. But Mom, think about it. We could visit you more often if you were in a place closer to our work. And this house, it's worth a lot of money. Money that Jessica and I could use for our future, to have children. I sat down again. My legs wouldn't hold me. Have children? I whispered. You're going to use the money from my house to have children who will never know this house? Who will never know where their father grew up? You don't understand. You're right. I don't understand how my son became this. Matthew stood up, annoyed. His eyes no longer held warmth, only impatience. I knew you would react this way. That's why Jessica told me not to say anything to you yet. You're too emotional, Mom. You can't think logically. Emotional? Of course I'm emotional. I'm talking about my life, my home. Look, Mom, I didn't come here to argue. I came because you called me. But if you're just going to attack Jessica and make me feel guilty for thinking about my future, I'd rather leave. Matthew, please, sit down. Let's talk calmly. No. I know how this ends. You crying, me feeling like the terrible son. Well, you know what, Mom? I'm tired. Tired of feeling guilty for having my own life. Tired of everything having to revolve around your feelings. He walked to the door. I followed him, pleading as I never thought I would. Matthew, please, don't leave like this. You're my son. I love you. I just want to understand what's happening. He stopped, his hand on the doorknob. He looked at me over his shoulder. What's happening, Mom, is that you're not my priority anymore. My priority now is Jessica. She's my wife. And if I have to choose between you two, I've already chosen. The door closed. I stood in the entryway, staring at the empty space where my son had been. The only son I had left in this city. The boy who had been my world. And he had just chosen a woman who wanted to erase me from existence. I walked like a zombie to my room. I sat on the bed. I picked up the rosary my mother gave me for my first communion, and I prayed. I prayed like I hadn't prayed in years. I didn't ask for things to get better. I asked for strength, because in that moment I understood something fundamental. No one was going to save me. Not Matthew, not Valerie, who was far away, not even God himself. If I wanted to keep my dignity, my house, my life, I would have to fight for it myself. And I was damn well going to fight. Because sometimes, a mother's love has to transform into something else to survive. Something colder, more calculating, more dangerous. After that conversation with Matthew, something changed in me. Or maybe something broke. I was no longer the compliant mother who swallowed her pride and smiled. But I wasn't yet the woman who would confront everything. I was in a dangerous place in between. A place where you watch, where you take notes, where you prepare. And while I was preparing, Jessica advanced. January was the month of my complete humiliation. It all started when Matthew called me on a Sunday morning. Mom, Jessica and I are coming over this afternoon. She wants to reorganize a few things. What things? I asked, my stomach tightening. Just the living room and the dining room. She says there's too much clutter. Don't worry. We're not going to throw out anything important. They arrived at 3 p.m. Jessica brought cardboard boxes and trash bags. She wore her hair in a high ponytail. Sweatpants, ready to work. Hi, Mrs. Elena. She greeted me with that smile that no longer fooled me. We're going to do a deep clean. You'll see how much better you'll feel with less stuff around. She started with the living room. She took the embroidered cushions my sister Sylvia had given me and put them in a box. These are so old. She took the painting of Our Lady of Guadalupe that David had hung from the wall. This gives the space a very dated look. Jessica, my husband put that painting up. We'll store it, don't worry. But here, in this spot, a mirror would be better. It makes the living room look bigger. Matthew carried the boxes without a word, without looking at me. But the worst came when she entered my bedroom. Mrs. Elena, we need to talk about your closet. You have clothes from 20 years ago. Let me help you select what stays and what goes. I don't need help with my clothes. Of course you do. Look, these dresses don't even fit you anymore. And these sweaters are moth-eaten. We have to throw all this out. She started pulling out my clothes, judging every piece. There were dresses I wore to my children's birthdays, blouses David gave me, sweaters my mother knitted. Each piece had a story. Each piece was a part of my life. This goes, this too, she said, throwing my life into black trash bags. Stop, I shouted. You are not throwing away my clothes. Mrs. Elena, Be reasonable. You haven't worn this in years. It's just taking up space. It's my space, my closet, my room. Jessica sighed with that exaggerated patience you use with children or difficult old people. Matthew, come in here, please. My son entered the room. Jessica pointed to the bags. Your mom won't let me help her. Tell her this is for her own good. Matthew looked at me. I saw guilt in his eyes, but also resignation. Mom, Jessica is right. You don't need all these clothes. Let her help you. I sat on my bed and let them. What else could I do? If I objected, they called me difficult, stubborn, senile. If I cried, I was too emotional. There was no way to win. They took 5 bags of my clothes, 5 bags of memories that ended up in some dumpster. But that was just the beginning. The next week, Jessica arrived with a proposal. Mrs. Elena, I have an idea. What if you helped me with some household chores? It would be a way to stay active. Doctors say older people need activity so they don't get depressed. What kind of chores? Well, I'm going to start working from here twice a week. I have virtual meetings. If you could wash some dishes, run the vacuum, make coffee, it would be a big help. And that way, you won't feel so lonely. That's how I became the maid in my own house. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, Jessica would arrive with her laptop. She would set up in my dining room, at my table, surrounded by papers and coffee cups. And I washed her dishes. I cleaned the space she dirtied. I served her water when she snapped her fingers without looking up from the screen. Mrs. Elena, can you get me a pillow for my back? Mrs. Elena, did you wash the breakfast dishes yet? Mrs. Elena, I need quiet. I have an important call. In my own house, in the dining room where I celebrated my children's birthdays, where I mourned David's death, where I spent 1,000 nights sewing clothes to save money. There I was, being treated like a servant, and Matthew did nothing. The few times he came and saw it, he just said, "It's good you're keeping busy, Mom." But the moment that shattered me came on a Thursday in February. Jessica was working as usual. I had prepared lentil soup, Matthew's favorite since he was a child. I set the table with my good plates, the ones I had inherited from my grandmother. I served 3 plates. When Jessica finished her call, she sat at the table. I did too. "What are you doing?" she asked, looking at me as if I were a fly in her soup. "I'm going to eat," I answered, confused. "No, Mrs. Elena. I have another meeting in 20 minutes, and I need to concentrate. Eat in the kitchen, please." The world stopped. "This is my table," I said in a trembling voice. "In my house." "Yes, but I'm working. I need space. Besides, you're used to eating in the kitchen, aren't you? I've seen you do it many times." She was right. For the last few months when she was here, I would eat standing by the stove, nibbling on cold tortillas, hiding in my own kitchen. "Jessica, please." "Mrs. Elena, don't make things difficult. Just do as I ask." I got up. I took my plate. I walked to the kitchen, my legs shaking. I sat on the little stool by the stove, the one I used to peel potatoes. And there, eating my soup with trembling hands, tears falling into the bowl, I understood something terrible. I was no longer the owner of this house. I was a burden, an inconvenience, an old woman who was in the way. That night, alone in my bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought of David. "Forgive me," I whispered to his photograph. "Forgive me for not taking care of what we built together, for letting them erase us." But then I remembered the words my husband told me 3 days before he died, when he already knew he didn't have much time left. "Elena, you are stronger than you think. When I'm gone, you're going to have to be. Promise me you'll never let anyone take your dignity." I had promised him, and it was time to keep that promise. Because there is a limit to everything. There is a point where pain transforms into something different, into clarity, into decision, into a cold fire that isn't extinguished by tears, but by action. The discovery came by accident. Or maybe fate has strange ways of giving you the tools right when you need them most. It was a Tuesday in March. Jessica had arrived early to work. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard her phone ring in the dining room. "Mrs. Elena, can you get that? If it's the office, tell them I'll call back in 5 minutes. I'm in the bathroom. I picked up the phone. The screen read Ryan. It wasn't from any office. I hesitated, but something made me answer. Hello? Babe, did you talk to the lawyer? A man's voice said. Young, familiar. My blood ran cold. Who is this? I asked. There was a silence. Then the voice changed, nervous. Sorry. Wrong number. He hung up. Babe. He had called Jessica babe. I left the phone where it was, my hands shaking. When Jessica came out of the bathroom, I was already back in the kitchen, pretending nothing had happened. Did anyone call? She asked. No. No one. I lied. That night, I couldn't sleep. Was Jessica having an affair? Did Matthew know? And what was this about a lawyer? The following days, I was more alert. I watched Jessica's every move, every call she made walking out to the patio, every text she wrote with a smile on her lips. On Thursday, my chance came. Jessica was in the bathroom. She had left her purse in the dining room. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I knew it was wrong. I knew I shouldn't. But after months of humiliation, of being treated as invisible, I no longer cared about the rules. I opened the purse. Inside was a blue folder. I pulled it out with trembling hands. I opened it, and there, on neatly organized white sheets, was the whole truth. They were legal documents. The first was a draft of a petition for conservatorship. My full name, Elena Josefina Renteria Torres. Date of birth, address. I read the lines, my eyes filling with tears. The proposed conservatee shows evident signs of advanced cognitive decline. Forgets conversations, cannot manage her finances, shows erratic behavior. A psychiatric evaluation is requested to determine her legal capacity and appoint a guardian. It was all a lie. Every word was a perfect, legal lie, designed to take everything from me. I kept reading. There were more documents. Property appraisal, $500,000. Quotes from assisted living facilities. Villa of Memories, $3,000 a month. Street Rita's Nursing Home, $2,500 a month. Handwritten calculations on a separate sheet. If we sell house, $500,000. Less legal fees, $20,000. Less nursing home, 5 years, $150,000. Leaves, $330,000 for us. 5 years. They were giving me 5 years to live, and they had already calculated how much it would cost to keep me locked up while they waited for me to die. But the worst was in the last pages. Printed screenshots of text messages. As evidence or backup. Jessica. I already spoke to the lawyer, Ryan. He says the process could take 6 months if she cooperates. A year, max, if she resists. Ryan. And what if Matthew changes his mind? Jessica. He won't. I've already convinced him it's what's best for his mom. He's weak. He does what I say. Ryan. I love you, my queen. When we get the money, we're going to Playa del Carmen, just like we dreamed. Jessica. Don't worry, love. Everything is going according to plan. Matthew doesn't suspect a thing. He thinks I love him. When I get the house money, I file for divorce, and we're gone. He's left with his guilt, and we get the life we deserve. Tears fell on the papers, staining the ink. My daughter-in-law didn't just want to rob me. She wanted to erase me. And while she locked me in a home to die alone, she planned to run off with her lover, using the money from the house my husband built with his own hands. And Matthew. My son was just a tool, a useful idiot she manipulated like a puppet. I heard the water in the bathroom turn off. With trembling hands, I took out my old cell phone, the one Jessica said I should change because it barely works. I photographed every page, every document, every message. I put the folder back exactly as it was and closed the purse just as Jessica walked out. Are you okay, Mrs. Elena? You look pale. I'm fine. Just a little low blood pressure. You should go to the doctor. At your age, those things are delicate. She smiled at me. That perfect smile she had practiced for 3 years. Yes, maybe I will, I said, smiling back. That night, after she left, I sat on my bed with the phone in my hands. I reviewed the photos again and again. Every word was a knife, but it was also ammunition. Now I knew the whole truth, and the truth however painful, makes you powerful. I called Valerie. It was 11 o'clock at night, but she answered on the second ring. Mom, what's wrong? Honey, I need you to come, and I need you to recommend the best lawyer you know. What happened, Mom? You're scaring me. I took a deep breath. What happened is that I'm done being a victim, and it's time for Jessica to learn that this old woman isn't as stupid as she thinks. There was a silence. Then I heard Valerie's voice, firm and filled with rage. I am going to destroy her life, Mom. I swear it. No, honey. That I'm going to do myself. But I need your help. You've got it. All of it. I hung up and looked at David's picture on the nightstand. Almost, my love. I'm almost getting our dignity back. Because there's one thing Jessica didn't know. Women of my generation survived economic crises. We raised children with almost nothing. We buried husbands and kept going. We are not fragile. We are steel, tempered in fire. And when we decide to fight, we don't forgive. Valerie arrived 2 days later. I saw her get out of the cab with a large suitcase and knew she was prepared to stay as long as it took. My daughter inherited her father's character. Strong, direct, no nonsense. When she entered the house, she hugged me so tightly, I felt all the tears I had held back for months wanting to burst out. Oh, Mom, she whispered in my ear. You look so thin. What have they done to you? I didn't answer. I just hugged her tighter. That night, sitting at the kitchen table with cups of coffee, I showed her the photographs. I watched her face go from disbelief to pure fury. That bitch, she muttered under her breath. That venomous snake. Don't use that language, I said out of habit, though deep down, I agreed. Mom, this is attempted fraud, financial abuse, conspiracy. We can report her to the police. I don't want a scandal, not yet. First, I need to protect the house. Protect myself. And then we'll see. Valerie nodded. She took out her phone and dialed a number. Mr. Aguirre, this is Valerie Torres. Yes, David's daughter. I need your help with something urgent. It's about my mother. Mr. Ernesto Aguirre had been my husband's lawyer for 30 years, a man of 72, the kind who still believed in honor and a man's word. David trusted him blindly. The next day, Mr. Aguirre arrived at my house with his worn leather briefcase and his bifocals. He sat in my living room, reviewing the photographs on his iPad with absolute concentration. When he finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me with sadness. Elena, this is serious. Very serious. This woman isn't just committing fraud. She's planning to steal your life. I know. What do we do? We have advantages. First, you are completely lucid. Any psychiatric evaluation would prove that. Second, we have proof of her plan. Third, we can act before she does. What do you propose? Mr. Aguirre opened his briefcase and took out documents. I propose 3 things. First, we modify your will immediately. Second, we create a trust that protects this house. Third, we gather more evidence for when the time comes to confront her. Explain the trust. It's simple. We transfer ownership of the house into a trust, of which you are the sole beneficiary as long as you live. You have total control. You can live here, rent it, sell it if you want. But Matthew cannot inherit it directly. When you pass, the trust is distributed as you decide. It can go to your grandchildren, to Valerie, to Charity, whatever you want, but Jessica will never be able to touch it. I felt a weight lift from my chest. And Matthew can't do anything? Nothing. The house ceases to be part of your direct inheritable estate. Even if they tried the conservatorship, which wouldn't succeed, they couldn't touch the trust. Let's do it. We spent 3 days preparing everything. Mr. Aguirre brought the documents. I signed them. Valerie photographed every page, saved copies to the cloud, to her computer, to 3 different USB drives. In this family, we don't trust anyone anymore, my daughter said with bitter irony. We also scheduled a private psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Mendoza came to the house, asked me questions for 2 hours, and gave me tests for memory, reasoning, and orientation. In the end, she smiled. Mrs. Elena, your mind is clearer than many people in their 50s. I'll give you a detailed report you can use legally if anyone questions your capacity. But the most important part of the plan was missing: the additional evidence. Mom, we need to record her, Valerie said. Not just the documents, we need her voice, her words, confessing everything. How? My daughter smiled. That smile she inherited from her father when she had a brilliant idea. Leave it to me. Valerie bought a small recording device, the size of a USB stick. We hid it in a vase in the living room, right where Jessica always sat to work. When she talks on the phone with her lover, we'll record everything, Valerie explained. And when the perfect moment comes, we'll confront her. When will that be? Valerie looked at me with determination. When she feels most secure, when she thinks she's already won, that's when predators let their guard down. For the next 2 weeks, we recorded everything. Every conversation Jessica had with Ryan, every derogatory comment about me when she thought I wasn't listening, every cruel laugh. Almost, my love. The lawyer says in 2 months we can file the petition. And if the old woman resists? It doesn't matter. I have Matthew eating out of my hand. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him. We also discovered more. Jessica had taken out credit cards in Matthew's name without him knowing. She owed $25,000. She had forged my son's signature on documents. She wasn't just a manipulator. She was a criminal. One afternoon, while Jessica was working in my dining room, Valerie and I were in the kitchen listening to the live recording on her phone. We heard her talking to Ryan. I'm tired of pretending, my love. Tired of smiling at the old woman, of putting up with Matthew. But it's worth it. Almost $500,000 is worth any sacrifice. Valerie squeezed my hand. I squeezed hers back. Soon, Mom, she whispered. Very soon. That night, after Jessica left, I sat with Valerie and Mr. Aguirre. On the table were all the documents: the signed trust, the modified will, the recordings, the photographs, the psychiatric report, the fraudulent credit card statements. Everything is ready, Mr. Aguirre said. Now we just need the right moment. What moment? I asked. Valeria smiled, a smile that gave me chills and hope at the same time. Your birthday, Mom. April 15th. It's 3 weeks away. We're going to organize a dinner. We'll invite Matthew, Jessica, Aunt Sylvia, some neighbors. And there, in front of everyone, we are going to reveal who your daughter-in-law really is. Isn't that too cruel? Cruel? Valerie leaned toward me. Mom, she planned to lock you in a nursing home and steal the house Dad built. Cruel doesn't even begin to cover it. This is justice. Mr. Aguirre cleared his throat. Elena, we can also do it privately if you prefer. Less drama, less pain. I thought about all the moments of humiliation, eating in the kitchen of my own house, watching my memories thrown in the trash, hearing my son say I was no longer his priority. No, I said with a firm voice. Let it be public. Let everyone see what she did. Let Matthew see who he married. Let Jessica's mother see what kind of daughter she raised. Valerie smiled. Mr. Aguirre nodded. Then prepare yourselves, the lawyer said, because this is going to be memorable. And memorable it was. Because there are moments in life when you stop being the prey and you become the hunter, where the silence breaks and the truth explodes like fire. And I was ready to burn everything false until only ashes remained. April 15th dawned with a clear sky. Ironic, I thought, because what was coming was a storm. Jessica had insisted on helping me with my birthday, but this time I had accepted with a smile. She thought I was finally bending to her will. She didn't know she was walking straight into her own trap. Mrs. Elena, let me organize everything. You just relax and enjoy your day, she had said the week before. Thank you, Jessica. You're so good to me. The words tasted like poison in my mouth, but I said them sweetly. Valerie had officially returned to Chicago, but in reality, she was staying at my sister Sylvia's house, just 10 minutes away. The plan was for her to arrive as a surprise for my birthday. On the morning of the 15th, I woke up at 5 as always. I prepared tamales, pozole, and hibiscus tea. Everything exactly as I would for any celebration. Jessica would arrive at 2 to supervise and add her modern touches, but what she didn't know was that this time, every detail was calculated. Aguirre had installed discreet cameras in the living room, small, invisible, streaming live to his phone. Valerie had access too. We wanted to record everything that would happen that night. At 2 o'clock sharp, Jessica arrived with Matthew. She was carrying silver metallic balloons that said 69 inches giant numbers. Matthew carried a box with a cake. "Happy birthday, Mom," my son said, kissing my forehead. For a second, I forgot everything. He was my baby. But then I saw Jessica behind him, with that calculating smile, and I remembered. "Thank you, son." Jessica began to reorganize the living room. She removed my flowers and put in hers. She changed the tablecloths. She moved the chairs. Every gesture was a declaration. "This is mine, not yours." I let her. I smiled. I nodded. I thanked her. "Oh, Mrs. Elena, you look so lovely today. Is that a new dress?" "No, it's 10 years old, but I take good care of it." "Well, it looks precious. Lies wrapped in honey." The guests began to arrive at 6. My sister Sylvia with her husband, the neighbors from next door, Mr. Ramon and Mrs. Ophelia, who had known me since I moved here, Jessica's friends, 5 elegant women who looked at me with condescending pity, Jessica's mother, Susan, with her pearl necklace and her air of superiority, and finally, at 6:30, Valerie arrived. "Surprise, Mom!" she shouted from the door. I ran to hug her, and this time, the tears I shed were real. My daughter, my support, my strength. I saw Jessica's face pale. She wasn't expecting Valerie to be here. She exchanged a nervous look with Matthew. "What a surprise, sister-in-law," Jessica said in a tense voice. "We didn't know you were coming." "Of course. It's my mother's birthday. Where else would I be?" The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. We sat down to dinner. Jessica had insisted on the seating arrangement. She was at the head of the table, with Matthew at her side, her mother at the other end. And I was relegated to a side seat, near the kitchen, exactly where she wanted me. I served the pozole. I passed the tortillas. Jessica received compliments for organizing such a lovely dinner. I was invisible. Again. Until I tried to sit in an empty chair that was left at the main table. "That seat is for my mother," Jessica shouted, her voice so loud that everyone stopped talking. "You sit over there, by the kitchen, in case anything needs to be served." The silence was absolute. Jessica's friends looked away, uncomfortable. The neighbors' eyes widened in surprise. Sylvia started to get up from her chair, furious, but Valerie put a hand on her arm. "Wait," my daughter whispered. Matthew had his mouth open but said nothing. As always, I stood there, holding my plate, feeling 20 pairs of eyes on me. And then, something inside me clicked. There was no more fear, only clarity. I stood up slowly, very slowly. I set my plate down on the table gently. I walked to the stereo where the cheerful music Jessica had put on was playing. I turned it off. The silence became heavy, dense. Then I walked to the kitchen. I turned on the gas knob on the stove and turned it off. The fire went out with a whisper. The pot stopped simmering. I returned to the living room. Everyone was staring at me as if I had gone mad. I smiled, a calm, serene smile. "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate in my house," I said in a clear voice. "Yes, my house. Because although my daughter-in-law seems to constantly forget, this property is in my name. Every brick, every window, every corner of this place was built by my husband David and me 40 years ago." Jessica stood up. "Mrs. Elena, what are you doing? We're in the middle of dinner." "Sit down, Jessica," I said firmly. "I'm not finished." Something in my tone made her obey. She sat, pale. Valerie stood up and brought over a laptop. She connected it to the living room television. Mr. Aguirre appeared from the kitchen, where he had been waiting silently. "You see," I continued, "I have been very foolish these past few months, very naive. I let myself be treated like a servant in my own home. I let my memories be thrown in the trash. I let myself be made to feel like an inconvenience." "Mom, what are you talking about?" Matthew asked, confused. "I'm talking about this." Valerie pressed a key. On the television screen, the photographs of the documents appeared. The petition for conservatorship, The quotes from nursing homes, the calculations of how much money would be left after locking me away. The murmurs exploded. Jessica's friends covered their mouths. Mr. Ramon shook his head, disbelieving. Susan, Jessica's mother, had turned white as paper. What is this? Matthew shouted, jumping to his feet. Jessica? I don't. It's taken out of context. My daughter-in-law stammered, searching for words. Context? I said in a cold voice. What context does the old woman won't last much longer need? Or when we get the house money? Valerie switched to the next image. The text messages with Ryan. Jessica shot to her feet as if she had been electrocuted. Turn that off. You have no right. I have every right. It's my house, my birthday, and my truth. The messages projected one after another on the giant screen. Every word was a hammer blow, every sentence a conviction. Matthew is weak. He does what I say. When I get the money, I file for divorce. I love you, Ryan. We'll be in Playa del Carmen soon. Matthew read with his mouth open, his hands trembling. Tears streamed down his face. No, it can't be, he whispered. Oh, but there's more, Valerie said with a sharp voice. This is the history of the credit cards you took out in my brother's name without his consent. $25,000 in debt. Document signed with his forged signature. Mr. Aguirre stepped forward. Which constitutes bank fraud, forgery, and marriage under false pretenses with intent to defraud, all criminally prosecutable. Jessica looked for the exit, but Valerie was blocking the front door and Sylvia the one to the kitchen. Sit down, Jessica, I repeated. If you try to leave, Mr. Aguirre has contacts at the district attorney's office. You can leave here in handcuffs, or with dignity. You choose. She collapsed into the chair. Defeated, her mother stood up, furious. This is a trap, a conspiracy against my daughter. No, Susan, Sylvia said with venom in her voice. This is justice. Your daughter tried to steal my sister's life, and she almost succeeded. The guests were starting to pull out their phones. Some were recording, others were texting. In less than 10 minutes, the whole neighborhood would know the truth. Jessica was crying now, her hands covering her face. But I felt no pity, only a cold emptiness where motherly love used to be. I looked at Matthew. My son was destroyed, staring at the woman he had married as if she were a stranger. Matthew, I said softly, I gave you life. I raised you. I loved you. And you chose this woman over me. But you know what? It doesn't matter anymore. I walked over to him and put my hand on his wet cheek. Because I also chose. I chose my dignity over your love, and I don't regret it. I discovered that night. Revenge isn't a dish best served cold. It's a mirror you force others to look into, and sometimes the image they see destroys them more than any punishment. Jessica was crying with her head in her hands, but I knew they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage, of frustration at being caught. I knew her too well by now. Matthew was still on his feet, staring at the images on the screen as if he were watching his own life fall apart. And, in a way, he was. Mom. His voice was barely a broken whisper. I didn't know. About the lover, the credit cards. I thought she really cared about you, that the nursing home was for your own good. For my good? I interrupted, and my voice sounded harsher than I intended. Matthew, your wife calculated how many years I had left to live. 5. She gave me 5 years. Does that sound like concern to you? He couldn't answer. Valerie changed the image on the screen. But wait, because this is just getting started, my daughter said with a cold smile. Mom, do you want to tell them, or should I? I looked at her and nodded. It was time to drop the last bomb. Go ahead, honey. Valerie connected an audio cable to the television. Everyone in the room was completely silent. Even Jessica's friends, who had earlier defended her with their eyes, had now moved away from her as if she had a contagious disease. What you are about to hear, Valerie explained, are recordings of phone conversations Jessica had in this house over the past 2 weeks. All legally recorded, as it occurred on my mother's private property with her consent. She pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the room. Clear, confident, without the sweet tone she used with me. Almost, my love. The lawyer says in 2 months we can file the petition for conservatorship. He knows a psychiatrist who, for $5,000, will sign off on any report we need. Ryan's voice responded. And if the old woman resists? I've heard those processes can take years. It doesn't matter. I have a plan B. I can put medication in her food. Things to make her seem confused, forgetful. With testimony from neighbors and a few well-staged scenes, any judge will declare her incompetent. My stomach turned hearing those words. I thought of all the times I had felt dizzy after eating what Jessica prepared, the times I forgot simple things and wondered if I was really losing my memory. She was poisoning me, slowly. That's a lie, Jessica shouted, jumping to her feet. You edited that recording. That's not my voice. Oh, isn't it? Valerie smiled. Mr. Aguirre, could you explain to the lady about the authenticity of the recordings? The lawyer adjusted his glasses. The recordings were analyzed by a forensic audio expert. He confirmed there is no editing and the voice is authentic. I have the notarized report right here. We also identified the number this Ryan was calling from. It's already been traced. He lives in Playa del Carmen, as mentioned in the texts. He's 28 years old and has a record for fraud. Jessica looked to her mother for support, but Susan was sitting with her face in her hands, ashamed. The recording continued. And Matthew? He doesn't suspect anything? Not at all. He's so predictable. I tell him his mom is losing her mind, and he believes me. I tell him we need this house, and he's convinced it's for our future. He's weak, Ryan. Always has been. His dad died when he was still young, so he never had a strong figure to teach him to have a backbone. He's perfect to manipulate. Matthew slumped into the nearest chair. He had lost all the color in his face. One of Jessica's friends stood up without a word and left the house. Then another, and another. In less than 2 minutes, all of Jessica's friends were gone. Only the neighbors, my family, Susan, and Matthew remained. There's more, Valerie said, relentless. Another recording. This time, Jessica talking to someone else. An older woman's voice. Mrs. Mendez, I really appreciate you agreeing to testify if needed. You just have to say, you saw Mrs. Elena looking confused, talking to herself, forgetting to lock the door. I'll pay you $2,000 for your testimony. And what if they ask me a lot of questions at the courthouse? Don't worry. The lawyer will prepare everything. You just confirm what we discussed. Mr. Ramon stood up, furious. That's Alma Mendez, the one who lives 3 houses down. He turned to me. Elena, 2 weeks ago she asked me if I had seen you acting strange lately. I told her you were perfectly fine. Now I understand why she was asking. Jessica wasn't crying anymore. She was motionless, like a statue of ice, knowing that every second that passed was sinking her deeper. I'd like to clarify something, Mr. Aguirre said, stepping forward. Mrs. Elena voluntarily underwent a full psychiatric evaluation 3 weeks ago. The results show she is in full command of her mental faculties. There is no cognitive decline, no confusion. In fact, her memory and reasoning skills are above average for her age. He took a folder with official documents and placed it on the table. Any attempt to declare her incompetent would have been immediately dismissed. But the emotional damage and the time wasted in court? That was part of the plan, wasn't it, Jessica? To keep her tied up in legal proceedings, spending money on lawyers, while you continued to manipulate Matthew. Jessica finally spoke, with a venom in her voice I had never heard. So what if it was? This old woman has more than she needs. A huge house all to herself. Money saved up. For what? To die? And let it all rot? At least I was going to put those resources to use. The audacity left me speechless. Resources, I repeated slowly. That's what you call the house I built with my husband. Resources. Call it whatever you want. The reality is, you're in the way. Matthew is too weak to tell you, but I'm not. You're in the way of your own life, clinging to the past, to memories, to old things that don't matter anymore. I was just trying to free you from that. Free me? I walked toward her, and for the first time in my life, I felt pure hatred. Free me by locking me in a nursing home? By poisoning me to make me look senile? By stealing the house my husband built with his hands? Your husband is dead, Jessica spat, and you should be too. The silence that followed was so profound, I could hear my own heart beating. Matthew stood up slowly, walked over to Jessica, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw fury in my son's eyes. "Get out of this house," he said, his voice trembling with contained rage. "Now." "Matthew, now," he screamed, with a force I never knew he had. "Get out of this house before I call the police myself." Jessica looked at him with pure hatred. Then she looked at me. In her eyes, there was no remorse, only fury at having lost. "This isn't over," she said in a low, threatening voice. Valerie stepped forward. "Oh, yes, Jessica, it is over, because we have copies of all this in 4 different places. If you try anything against my mother or my brother, this goes to the DA's office in less than an hour. And believe me, with this evidence, you would spend years in prison." Mr. Aguirre added, "I have also prepared a restraining order. If you come within 500 feet of this property, or Mrs. Elena, you will go directly to jail. Understood?" Jessica grabbed her purse. Her mother, Susan, followed her in silence, head bowed. Before leaving, Jessica turned one last time. "You're going to regret this, old woman. You're going to die alone and forgotten." I smiled, a calm, serene smile. "I'd rather die alone and with dignity than surrounded by snakes like you." The door closed behind her, and for the first time in 3 years, I could breathe in my own house. Because the greatest victory isn't destroying your enemy. It's getting back what they took from you. Your voice, your space, your power. And I had just gotten all 3 back. When the door closed behind Jessica, the house fell into a heavy silence. The neighbors said their goodbyes in hushed tones, with sincere hugs and supportive glances. Mr. Ramon squeezed my hand before he left. "Elena, if you need anything at all, we're 3 houses down." "Thank you, Ramon." Sylvia came over and hugged me tightly. "Sister, I'm so proud of you." "David would be proud." I nodded, unable to speak. If I spoke, I would cry, and I didn't want to cry just yet. When everyone had left, it was just Valerie, Mr. Aguirre, Matthew, and me. My son was sitting on the green sofa that Jessica hated so much, his head in his hands, his body was shaking. I don't know if it was from rage, shame, or grief. Probably all 3. Valerie sat down next to him. She put a hand on his shoulder. "Matthew, don't," he said, his voice choked. "Don't say anything. There's nothing to say. There's a lot to say," my daughter replied firmly but not cruelly. "It can wait, Mr. Aguirre cleared his throat. "Elena, Matthew, we need to discuss the legal aspects. The divorce, the debts, the restraining order. Mr. Aguirre," I said softly, "could you come back tomorrow? I think tonight. We just need to process everything first." The lawyer nodded with understanding. "Of course. I'll leave you as a family. Call me if you need anything." He came over and kissed my forehead, like my father used to. "You did the right thing, Elena. David would be very proud. When he left, it was just the 3 of us. My real family. Broken, but real." Matthew finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, swollen. He looked like he had aged 10 years in one night. "Mom," his voice broke. "I don't even know where to begin." I sat down across from him. Valerie moved to the armchair, giving us space. "Start at the beginning," I said softly. "I'm sorry." The tears ran freely down his face. "I'm so sorry. I was a coward, an idiot." "An idiot," I said simply. "You were." He flinched as if I'd hit him. "But," I continued, "you were also manipulated. Jessica was, very good at what she did. That's no excuse." He wiped his face angrily. "I saw how she treated you. I saw how you changed, how you became smaller every day, and I did nothing. I chose to believe her instead of trusting my gut." "Why?" Valerie asked. Her voice wasn't accusing, just genuinely curious. "Why did you choose to believe her?" Matthew took a deep breath, searching for the words. "Because she made me feel important. After Dad died, I felt lost. Like I had to be the man of the house, but I didn't know how. Jessica came along and made me feel strong, capable, like I could be someone. And when she told me Mom was being difficult, that she needed help, that I was doing the right thing, I wanted to believe her. Because the alternative was accepting that I was failing everyone. Matthew, I said, feeling my heart break, your father never expected you to be the man of the house. He just expected you to be a good person. He crumbled. Completely. He fell to his knees in front of me, sobbing like he used to as a child when he got hurt playing. Forgive me, Mom. Please, forgive me. I let her humiliate you. I let her plan to lock you up. I let her make you feel invisible in your own house. How can you even look at me? I hugged him. Not because everything was okay, not because the pain disappeared, but because he was my son. And despite everything, he was still my son. Matthew, I'm not going to lie to you. It hurt. It hurt more than I can explain. To feel that my own son had abandoned me. I know, and I can never make up for it. I took his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. I don't expect you to make up for it, but I do expect you to learn, to never again let anyone, make you betray the people you love. I promise. His hands trembled, holding mine. I swear on Dad's memory, it will never happen again. Valerie joined the hug. The three of us cried together, releasing years of pain, betrayal, and silence. After a long time, we separated. Valerie brought tissues. We cleaned our faces as best we could, Matthew. Mr. Aguirre explained that you have $25,000 in debt from the cards Jessica took out in your name. He nodded miserably. I'm going to help you, I continued. I'm not going to pay all of it, because you need to learn responsibility. But I will pay half if you pay the other half, by working a second job or however you need to. Understood? Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because you are my son. And I'm not going to let one bad decision ruin your life. But I'm not going to fix everything for you either. Thank you. His voice was barely a whisper. I don't deserve your help. You probably don't, I said with a small smile. But that's a mother's love. Unconditional and irrational. Valerie poured us coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, where so many important conversations had happened over the years. So, what's next? My daughter asked. Matthew needs to file for divorce as soon as possible, I said. Mr. Aguirre can handle that. Jessica will want money, I'm sure. Let her try, Valerie growled. With all the evidence we have, she won't see a dime. I never want to see her again, Matthew said firmly. I don't want her money back. I don't want explanations. I don't want anything. I just want her to disappear from my life. She will, I assured him. The restraining order will take care of that. We sat in silence for a few minutes, processing everything. Finally, Matthew spoke. Mom, I know I can't live here again. Not after everything. But, can I visit? Can we try to rebuild this? I looked him in the eyes. I saw genuine remorse. I saw my son, not the manipulated man he had been. Yes, I said. Slowly. With time. But yes. He wiped away his tears again. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you have me anyway. Because forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing love over resentment, family over pride. But that forgiveness has conditions. It has boundaries. And this time, I'll be setting those boundaries very clearly. The next morning came with a strange clarity. I slept deeply for the first time in months. When I woke up, Valerie was already in the kitchen making coffee. Good morning, Mom. How do you feel? Free, I answered honestly. For the first time in 3 years, I feel free. We had a quiet breakfast. Scrambled eggs, refried beans, warm tortillas. Simple food that tasted like heaven after so long eating with my stomach tied in knots from anxiety. At 10 o'clock, Mr. Aguirre arrived with a briefcase full of documents. Matthew came half an hour later, with deep circles under his eyes but a determined look. We sat in the living room. The lawyer spread the papers on the coffee table. All right. Let's go step by step. First, the divorce. Matthew, with the evidence we have, we can process and express divorce on grounds of deceit, fraud, and infidelity. You don't need to give her anything. How long will it take? Matthew asked. With a cooperative judge and the evidence we have, 3 months max. Jessica can fight it, but she will lose. Her lawyers will know this and advise her to sign. Perfect. Second, Mr. Aguirre continued. The credit cards. We have proof of signature forgery. Matthew can press criminal charges, and the banks will cancel the debts. However, I asked, if Matthew presses criminal charges, Jessica will go to prison, probably for 3 to 5 years. Silence filled the room. I looked at my son. He was staring at his hands. Do I want her to go to prison? He muttered, more to himself than to us. Part of me does. Part of me wants to see her suffer like she made me suffer, like she made Mom suffer. Matthew, I said softly, this decision is yours. No one will judge you for what you choose. But Mom, she planned to poison you, to lock you in a home, to steal your house. Doesn't she deserve to pay for that? I thought carefully before answering. She deserves consequences, yes, but prison. Son, you have to be able to live with your decision. Ask yourself, will sending her to jail give you peace? Or just more bitterness? Matthew closed his eyes. He took several deep breaths. I don't want to be like her, he said finally. I don't want to be cruel, but I don't want her to get away scotangent-free either. There's a middle ground, Mr. Aguirre suggested. We can pressure her to sign the divorce on very favorable terms that she assumes all responsibility for the debts and waives any future claim. If she complies, we don't press charges. If she doesn't, or if she bothers you again, then everything goes to the DA. That, Matthew said with relief. That sounds fair. Agreed. I'll contact her today. We spent the next 2 hours reviewing documents. The trust for the house was perfect. My updated will protected my grandchildren. Everything was in order. At 2 in the afternoon, Mr. Aguirre's phone rang. It's her, he said. He put it on speaker. Mr. Aguirre? Jessica's voice sounded tired, defeated. Mrs. Jessica, I'm calling on behalf of Matthew Torres. We have a proposal. I'm listening. Mr. Aguirre explained the terms. Immediate divorce. She assumes all debts, waives any financial compensation, permanent restraining order. And if I accept? Jessica asked after a long silence. We do not press criminal charges for fraud, forgery, or attempted theft. You have my word. And the old woman agrees? Mrs. Elena, Mr. Aguirre corrected emphatically, is present. And yes, she agrees. Another silence. I need 48 hours to think about it. You have 24. After that, the charges go straight to the DA's office. That's blackmail. No, ma'am. That's justice. Your choice. Jessica hung up without saying goodbye. Valerie shook her head. Not a shred of decency, even at the end. The next day, at 11 in the morning, Jessica arrived accompanied by a young, nervous lawyer. She didn't come into the house. Mr. Aguirre went out to the street with the documents. From the window, I watched them argue for 20 minutes. Jessica gesticulated, shouted. Her lawyer seemed to be trying to calm her down. Finally, with trembling hands, she signed. Mr. Aguirre came back with the signed and notarized papers. It's done. Legally, it's over. Matthew took the documents and looked at them as if he couldn't believe they were real. It's over, he whispered. It's really over. But I knew something was missing. Jessica had signed, yes, but she hadn't really paid for the emotional damage. For the nights I cried, for the dignity she tried to take from me. Mr. Aguirre, I said, can I ask you for one last favor? Of course, Elena. I want you to give something to Jessica. I went up to my room. From the closet, I took a small box. Inside was $500 in cash. I also included a note I had written that morning. I went downstairs and gave the box to Mr. Aguirre. What's this? He asked, confused. Give this to Jessica. Tell her it's so she can't say I left her on the street. That it's more than she deserves, but less than what it will cost her to live with her conscience. Mr. Aguirre smiled. A smile of pure admiration. You are incredible, Elena. He went out and handed her the box. I saw Jessica's face from the window. She opened the box. She read the note. Her face contorted. Not with sadness, with impotent rage. Because I had given her money. I had shown her mercy. And that was worse than any revenge. It proved to her that I was a better person than she was. That I had won not by being cruel, but by keeping my dignity until the end. Jessica took the box and left without looking back. I never saw her again. Because true victory isn't in destroying your enemy. It's in proving that their evil didn't change you, that you remained who you were, despite the poison. And that in the end, light always wins over darkness. The first few days after Jessica left were strange. The house felt different, as if it had been exorcised. Valerie stayed for 2 more weeks before returning to Chicago. "Mom, are you sure you'll be okay alone?" she asked the morning of her departure. "More than okay, honey. For the first time in years, this house is mine again." I hugged her at the door, watching her get into the taxi. When she left, I closed the door and stood in the entryway. Silence. Peace. Mine. I walked through every room, reclaiming my space. I took out the painting of Our Lady of Guadalupe that Jessica had stored away and hung it back up in the living room. I returned my embroidered cushions to the sofa. I put up pictures of David and the children in every corner. The house was breathing again. Matthew didn't show up for a week. I understood he needed time to process, to heal. When he finally called, his voice sounded different, more mature. "Mom, can I come by tomorrow?" "Just to visit. I won't stay long. I need to see you." "Of course, son." He arrived the next day with a bouquet of white carnations, my favorites. Not expensive red roses, not flashy arrangements. Simple white carnations that reminded me of the ones David used to bring me every Friday. "I didn't know what to bring," he said timidly at the door. "They're perfect." I made coffee and pan dulce. We sat in the kitchen, not the living room. The place where the important conversations had always happened. "Mom, I moved into a small apartment downtown. It's different, but it's mine. No memories of her." "I'm glad, son." I also started therapy, twice a week. The therapist says I have codependency issues and, he laughed bitterly, low self-esteem. Imagine that. 37 years old, and I'm just discovering I don't know who I am without someone telling me what to do. "Matthew, we all have things to work on. The important thing is that you're doing it. Can I ask you something?" "Anything." How did you manage to forgive me?" "Because I still can't forgive myself." I put my cup down on the table. I thought carefully. "I haven't forgiven you completely yet," I said honestly. "And maybe I never will, all the way. But I love you. And I chose love over resentment. That doesn't mean the pain is gone. It means I decided not to let that pain turn me into someone bitter." His eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve that love. No one deserves love. It's given or it's not. And I'm choosing to give it to you. But this time, with clear boundaries." "What boundaries?" "That you never again allow anyone to disrespect me. That you include me in your important decisions not to ask permission, but out of respect. That if you ever have another partner, she understands from day one that I am your mother and I deserve consideration. I promise." He took my hand. "Mom, I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving to you that I can be better. I don't need the rest of your life, Matthew. I just need you to be honest with me. That's all." The visits became regular. On Sundays, Matthew would come for dinner. I'd make pozole or mole, his favorites. We'd talk about his work, his therapy, his life. Little by little, I got to know the man he was becoming. A more conscious, stronger one. A month later, he brought someone. "Mom, I want you to meet Patricia." She was a woman of about 35, with short brown hair and glasses. She dressed simply, in jeans and a white blouse. She was carrying a Tupperware container. "Mrs. Elena, it's an honor to meet you. Matthew has told me so much about you." She held out the container. "I made oatmeal cookies. I hope you like them." They weren't expensive flowers. They weren't perfect words. They were homemade cookies, made with her own hands. "Thank you, Patricia. Come in, please." During the meal, Patricia asked me about my life, about David, about how we met, about building the house. She listened genuinely. She asked intelligent questions. When I told her about my garden, she got excited. Could you show me? I love plants, but I've never been good at taking care of them. We spent an hour in the garden. I showed her my bougainvillea, my roses, the herbs. Patricia took notes on her phone. She asked questions. She got her hands dirty, touching the soil. When they left, Matthew stayed a moment at the door. What did you think? She seems genuine, humble, real. She is. She's an elementary school teacher. She doesn't make much, but she loves what she does. She doesn't care about my money or my house or any material things, just me. Do you love her? It's still early to know, but I like how she makes me feel. Calm, like I can breathe. Then give it time, no rush. And if it ever gets serious, I'd like to get to know her better. You got it, Mom. The months passed. Summer arrived with its hot afternoons. I started replanting the garden with Sylvia. I invited the neighbors over for coffee. I resumed my knitting classes, which I had abandoned when Jessica started controlling my time. One afternoon in July, while I was watering the plants, my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Elena? It was a young woman's voice, nervous. Yes? Who is this? My name is Andrea. I was a friend of Jessica's. My stomach tensed. What do you want? I needed to tell you something. Jessica called me a few days ago. She's in Playa del Carmen with that Ryan guy, but he already left her. She ran out of money, and he kicked her out. Now she's working in a restaurant washing dishes. I didn't feel satisfaction. Just a sad emptiness. Why are you telling me this? Because you were right. Everything you said that night at your birthday, it was true. Jessica used me, too. She borrowed money from me, never paid me back. And when I confronted her, she blocked me. I just wanted you to know that not all of us were like her. Some of us just realized too late who she really was. Thank you for calling, Andrea. Did you forgive him? Your son, I mean. Matthew. I'm in the process. He's so lucky. Jessica will never have that. No one is going to forgive her. Her own mother stopped speaking to her. We hung up. I stood in the garden with the hose in my hand, thinking. Jessica had lost everything, and I had regained everything that mattered. Because the real wealth was never in the house or the money. It was in being able to sleep in peace, in feeling like the owner of your own life, in having a family that loves you, not one that uses you. And that, no one could ever take from me again. A full year had passed since that birthday night that changed everything. It was April again, and the air smelled like fresh bougainvillea. I was in the kitchen preparing pozole when the doorbell rang. I looked at the clock. 11 in the morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door and found Matthew with a nervous smile. Hi, Mom. Do you have time? I always have time for you, son. Come in. He came in but stood in the living room with his hands in his pockets, like when he was a teenager and had something important to say. What's wrong, Matthew? You're making me nervous. Mom, Patricia and I have been dating for 10 months, officially, and I want to ask her to marry me. My heart skipped a beat. After everything we'd been through, the word marriage gave me chills. Sit down, son. Let's talk. We sat down. Matthew looked different from the man who had been married to Jessica. There was light in his eyes, peace on his face. I know what you're thinking, he said. After Jessica, how can I trust my judgment again? But Mom, Patricia is different, completely different. Tell me. She spent a year getting to know you. Not because I forced her, but because she wanted to. She asks about you every week. When you went to the hospital for your checkup, she offered to go with you, without me even saying anything. When you turned 69 2 weeks ago, she reminded me 3 times not to forget to call you. It was true. Patricia had been present in small but constant ways. She sent me pictures of her students, invited me to her school plays, asked me for advice on recipes. Do you love her? I asked directly. Yes, but not like I loved Jessica. With Jessica, it was obsession, need, fear of being alone. With Patricia, it's calm. It's being able to be myself without any masks. It's knowing that if I lose my job tomorrow, she'll still be there. Not for my money, but for me. And what does she say? I haven't proposed yet. Because first, I needed your blessing. Not your permission, Mom. Your blessing. There's a difference. I felt my eyes fill with tears. A year ago, I would have said yes to anything just to make you happy. I would have ignored all the red flags. But now I'm asking you honestly. Does Patricia make you happy? Does she respect you? Does she respect your family? Yes, to all three. Then you have my blessing. Matthew hugged me tightly. Thank you, Mom. And there's something else. When I propose, I want to do it here. In this house. In your garden, where Dad planted the bougainvillea. Would you let me? This house is yours too, Matthew. It always has been. No, Mom. It stopped being mine when I allowed Jessica to disrespect you here, but I'd like for it to be a place of good memories again. Of new beginnings. 2 weeks later, we organized a family dinner. Just us. Valerie with Daniel and the grandkids, Sylvia with her husband, Matthew, Patricia, and me. I had strung lights in the garden. Patricia thought it was just a simple family dinner. She didn't know what was coming. After dessert, Matthew stood up. Patricia, there's something I want to say. She looked at him, confused. Matthew took her hand and led her into the garden. We all followed. A year ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. I had lost everything. My marriage, my dignity. I almost lost my family. And then you showed up. Patricia had her hands over her mouth, her eyes wide. You didn't show up with grand promises or expensive gifts. You showed up with homemade cookies and sincere questions. You taught me that love isn't possession or control. It's respect. It's peace. It's wanting the best for the other person, even when it doesn't benefit you directly. He got down on one knee. He pulled out a small box. Patricia, would you do me the honor of marrying me? I don't promise perfection, but I promise honesty. I don't promise wealth, but I promise hard work. And I promise that my family, especially my mother, will always have the place she deserves in our life. Patricia was crying. I was crying. Valerie was crying. Even my grandkids were emotional. Yes, Patricia whispered. 1,000 times yes. They kissed under the bougainvillea that David had planted 40 years ago. And in that moment, I felt the circle close. That the house was once again a place of love, not pain. Afterward, while everyone was celebrating inside, Patricia approached me. Mrs. Elena, I know you've suffered so much. Matthew told me everything, and I want you to know that I will never, ever disrespect you. You built this family. I'm just asking for permission to be a part of it. I hugged her tightly. You don't need permission, honey. You're already part of it. That night, when everyone had gone, I stayed in the garden alone. I looked at the stars and spoke to David, as I sometimes do. We did it, my love. They almost won, but in the end, we did. The house is still standing, Matthew learned. And this time, he'll choose well. The wind blew gently, rustling the bougainvillea, and I swear I felt David smile. Because second chances do exist. Not to erase the past, but to build a better future with the lessons learned. And this time, my family knew exactly what to protect and what to never, ever allow again. 2 years after that night that changed everything, I find myself sitting in my garden watching my grandchildren play among the bougainvillea. Sophia is 11 now, Matteo 9. They're running, chasing butterflies, while Patricia teaches them the names of the plants. Matthew is inside making lemonade. I can hear his laugh from here, genuine and light. So different from that broken man who cried in my arms 2 years ago. Patricia turned out to be exactly who she seemed. Authentic, kind, real. They got married a year ago in a simple ceremony in the garden of this house. Nothing ostentatious, just close family and true friends. She wore a simple white dress that cost her $300. She didn't care. Mrs. Elena, she told me that morning as I helped her with her hair, "Thank you for giving Matthew another chance. And thank you for giving me one, too. You never needed a chance, honey. You came as you were. That's all I ever asked for. They live in their own apartment now, but they come every Sunday. Patricia helps me in the garden. Matthew fixes whatever is broken. But it's not obligation or manipulation anymore. It's simple, true love. Valerie is still in Chicago, but we talk every day. Last month, she visited with news. She's pregnant again. It's going to be a girl. She wants to name her Elena. So she never forgets her grandmother's strength, she told me, with tears in her eyes. My sister Sylvia comes every Thursday. We drink coffee, we knit, we gossip about the neighbors. Simple things that remind me happiness doesn't need to be complicated. Of Jessica, I heard little more after that call from Andrea. I heard through the grapevine that she's still in Playa del Carmen, that she's changed jobs several times, that her family never forgave her. A small part of me felt pity, a very small part, because she chose her path. She chose lies over truth, greed over love, manipulation over honesty. And those choices have consequences that no money can erase. Matthew never spoke her name again. Neither did I. Some people don't deserve space in your memory. 3 months ago, I received a letter from the bank. Checking my statements, I found that someone had deposited $3,000 into my account. The sender was anonymous, but I knew. I called Matthew. "Son, did you deposit money in my account?" There was a silence. "It was Jessica's debt to you, Mom, the money she borrowed and never paid back. It took me 2 years, but I saved it up. With interest." "Matthew, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. Because even though she asked for it, I'm the one who let her use you. That debt was mine, too. I used that money to remodel the kitchen. Not because it needed it, but because I wanted every corner of this house to have only good new memories. This afternoon, as I watch my family gathered, I think about everything that happened. The pain, the betrayal, the humiliation, but also the strength I found, the lessons I learned, the dignity I reclaimed. Patricia comes over with a cup of tea. "What are you thinking about, Sugrita?" I smile at her. She started calling me that 6 months ago, with genuine affection. I'm thinking that it was worth it. All the pain was worth it to get here. "You wouldn't change anything?" I think about it honestly. I would have changed trusting so much at the beginning. I would have set boundaries from day one. But the rest? No. Because the rest taught me who I really am. And it taught Matthew who he wants to be. Matthew comes out with the lemonade, kisses Patricia on the forehead, and smiles at me. A whole man, not the puppet he was. "Do you know what day it is today?" I ask suddenly. "What day, Grandma?" Sophia asks. "Exactly 2 years ago today, I threw everyone out of my house on my birthday, the worst and best day of my life." "Why the best?" Mateo asks. "Because that was the day I stopped being a victim and became the owner of my own life again." Matthew raises his glass. "To Mom, the strongest woman I know." Everyone raises their glass. Patricia, Valerie on video call, the grandkids, Sylvia, and I, Elena Josefina Renteria Torres. 71 years old, owner of this house and my own destiny. I raise my glass too. To the dignity that no one can take from you unless you let them. To the second chances we build with our own hands. To knowing when to forgive and when to let go. And to understanding, finally, that the real victory isn't in destroying those who hurt you. It's in remaining who you are, in spite of them. I look at the imaginary camera, as if I can see every person listening to this story. If you are living through something similar, I want you to know this: your dignity is not negotiable. It doesn't matter how much you love them, or how much they love you. It doesn't matter if it's your son, your daughter-in-law, your husband. No one has the right to make you feel invisible in your own life. There will be those who call you selfish for defending yourself, difficult for setting boundaries, cruel for saying no. Let them talk, because at the end of the day, you are the one who has to live with your decisions. And it is better to live with the peace of having defended your worth than with the regret of having let yourself be erased. This was my story. A story of betrayal, yes, but also of resurrection. Of discovering that even at 68 years old, you can roar like a lioness. And if I could, you can too. It's never too late to get your voice back. It's never too late to say, enough. It's never too late to choose yourself. Because true wealth isn't in what you own, but but in what you refuse to let them take. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Give it a like if you've ever had to defend yourself against someone you loved, and subscribe for more real stories of women who refuse to be invisible. Remember, your dignity is worth more than any relationship. Until the next story, and may you never, ever let anyone dim your light. End.